On the Celebrity Hotline, we have one of the funniest and most talented comedians and gospel singers, as well as songwriters today. He is a Dove Award winner, former member of the Gaither vocal band, and has recorded several music and comedy albums. Welcome to Life and Laughs podcast, legendary Mark Lowry. Yes.
Hey guys, so good to be with you today.
Yes.
I'm in Houston, you're in California and Little Rock. Isn't technology amazing?
It is great, especially with times like the quarantine time we're having today. How are you dealing with that?
I'm doing good. I'm 61, so I'm in the category that could go down any minute. But I've been avoiding people pretty well and washing my hands, and I figure you got to die of something. So I don't know. I think the COVID thing, that would be a horrible death because you suffocate, and I don't want to suffocate.
Right.
Yes.
I don't like what was that old comedian with the mustache and the glasses back years ago?
Gallagher.
No, way before that.
Oh, Groucho Marx.
Yes. He said, I don't mind dying, I just don't want to be there when it happens.
I love that. Well, now you have a birthday coming up soon in June. Yes, you're going to be, I guess 62.
Yeah, 62.
Right.
Never dreamed I'd get this old, but I am thrilled. I like it, actually. I'm so grateful and at peace with who I am. I actually like who I am. And, not everybody can say that, so I'm blessed.
Well, tell us about growing up in Houston, Texas, and kind of what you were like as a child.
Well, I was hyperactive, and I had the ADHD before they knew how to abbreviate it. In fact, I was one of the first hyperactive probably kids in our church that they knew. I was sent to a psychiatrist. I was put on Ritalin, so they were all starting to recognize it back then. I'm sure hyperactive kids have been around forever.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of spankings. That's what you did back then. Scared to death of Daddy coming home. He always came home, and I did. But if you got a whipping at school, you're going to get a whipping at home. That's the way it was back then. And so I'm thankful for my childhood, mainly because they told me about Jesus, and I'm in love with him, and I'm thankful for him. And really, all of my humor really revolves around him, because when I was in college and the Lord called me into music first, actually, in 1977, and I thought I was going to be a singer, just a singer. And then I started singing in these independent Baptist churches, because that's where I come from. And they would laugh, but, they wouldn't clap back then, because that's giving glory to men.
Yeah.
They wouldn't shout. Afraid someone might think they're doing it in another language, but they would laugh. And that's how I knew they were listening. And all I cared about is, are they listening? So my humor has always been really tainted with the gospel.
Yeah.
I've only done one comedy club in my life, and it went over like a turd in a punch bowl. But it mainly because I was scared, probably. I was out of my environment.
Yeah.
But, I bet you a lot of those people couldn't go into an independent Baptist church and make them laugh either. So we got different audiences. So it's been a fun journey. I even forgot what the question was, but when you're sitting, you just start rambling and hope it ends up somewhere.
Well, we were talking about how you grew up and progressed into your comedy in college. I think in college you joined a group, your first singing group. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. Well, it was called the Preacher Boys Chorale, right?
Yeah. And
at Liberty Baptist College, which is now Liberty University, but back then it was just a glorified high school. If you had an IQ of a turnip, and you could pay your bill, you could get a degree. Now, university, but it still took me. I still crammed 4 years of college into 5.
Yeah.
And but the Lord did call me to do what I'm doing to this day. I believe it was the Lord. We Baptists, he never speaks to us audibly. We couldn't handle that. But I do think the Lord spoke to me and called me, because looking back, it looks like he was in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Isn't that amazing that it's not till years later sometimes that we can see the hand of God
Yeah.
on our lives and how he was leading us and guiding us. And at the time we may think we're doing a lot of it when we're utterly at his command.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Get home to heaven one day because what Jesus has done for me. That's the only reason I'm going to get in. But the Lord's going I think the Father's going to say, hey, Mark, come here. I want to show you something. You know, after about 1 billion years, when he has time for me, he'll say, hey, I want to show you something. And he's going to take me to a fishing pole with a string on the end of it and a gadget on it. And he's going to say, this is how I kept you moving in the right direction. I just hung gadgets in front of you because I love gadgets. And I've used gadgets, you know, to reach people, you know, through Facebook and Twitter and YouTube. And I can sit in my lazy boy and reach the world. Just
That's incredible.
I mean, really, one live broadcast from my bedroom or my office or wherever, because I do Mondays with Mark from my bedroom, which is will reach more people than I could on a tour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I reach about 1,000. You know, if I'm on tour, I may have about 1,000 a night now. Well, there'll be 30,000 watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
Or Facebook, combine it all.
It's amazing.
It's an amazing day we're living in.
It is. And you seem very at peace and comfortable with doing it online. I'm a comic, and so I feed off the audience interaction, and I need that feedback in order to make, well, it's to make myself feel gratified that these jokes are actually working or not. But I've had a hard time in this lockdown because everything I'm doing now is just me looking at a screen, hoping that people are laughing, hoping that people are interacting. But you seem to have come into this, I would say, a confidence, a healthy confidence that you're walking in, being able to just interact and input from there. Is that just over maturity? What? Well, I need to tap into that.
I think, first of all, when I go live, I see the people start coming in. I don't wait. Here's what a lot of people do wrong. They sit there and wait for the people to fill the room before they start talking. Well, most of your views will be on replay, not live. Even though I always go live, I love going live because it's such a high wire thing. It's like with the slip of your tongue, you could ruin your entire career. And I love that. I love the fact that with one word, I could kiss everything goodbye. No, and I won't do that, but and I love reading their comments. They're instantaneous. I can put their comments on the screen so they know it's live and they know I'm talking to them. And they bring up things that I hadn't thought of, things that will cause me to talk in one direction, you know, because I mean, I don't even usually know what I'm thinking till I hear myself say it. I am a talk thinker. And the ability to go live and talk about Jesus or life or whatever I want to talk about makes me, number one, believe it more. You know, the Bible does say we're saved by the word of our testimony. I believe somewhere it says that. Blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony. So talking about the Lord will strengthen your faith, no doubt. So I love doing that. And then the humor just comes out in the way I express things. I don't plan it, but if they laugh, I do it again. You know? All that Gaither stuff that we created, Bill Gaither and me, where I was like the perpetual 10-year-old boy picking on his hair and stuff, was all original one night and off the cuff one night. But if it got a laugh, you know how this is as a comedian, you do it again. You know, the audience does tell you what's funny. You may think you know what's funny, but I've had many things that I've said that I thought were so funny that they didn't get, or else they were thinking, because some things I do have a double punch. Like it'll be funny, but I also have a point I'm trying to make. Like, for instance, when the Baptists, my people, got all upset many years ago because Disney had a gay day, you know. And all they were upset. They were going to picket Disney or whatever. And I'm thinking, that's not the way you win them. That's not the way you win anybody.
Yeah, right.
You know, so with Gaither, I always admitted I'm a Baptist. I was raised Baptist. I'm still theologically Baptist. I feel like I'm now more of a follower of Jesus, but rather than a Baptist, but you can be both. Anyway, so Gaither would say, "Are you a Baptist on stage?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "How did I get into that? We can't even." I said, somehow I'd get into saying we can't even go to we can't do nothing. We can eat and go to church. That's about it. I said, we can't even go to Disneyland anymore. And the people would laugh. I mean, Gaither had 10,000, 20,000 people at that time. So I knew I was making an impact. I was bringing to the people this thing that we can't do this anymore. And by saying, I didn't say if I agreed with it or I didn't agree with it. I just said, this is it. And I love that. I love laying the facts in front of the people and let them decide if they agree or don't. Yeah. Because they're intelligent. They're not stupid. They don't have to be a hand fed. A lot of preachers do want to keep the lights out, chew the food for you, walk over and like a bird, spit it in your mouth and tell you to swallow.
Yeah.
But really, preachers are just supposed to set the buffet, and then we can come and take what we need.
Yeah.
That's
good. I like that.
Jesus even said that at the end of Matthew. He said to those, when he was chewing out those preachers back in his day, he said, you take God's law, which should be a banquet for all to come and feast on, and you bundle it into rules, and you load them down like pack animals, and you won't lift a finger to help them up when they fall beneath the load.
Yeah.
And that's from the Message Bible, that interpretation. But when I read that one day, I thought, oh, dear God, if Jesus ever looked at me and told me I'd gone around the world making disciples twice as fit for hell as myself, which he also said in that passage, I mean, give me a gun.
Yeah.
I am wasting my life. I want to lift people up. I want to woo the bride to the bridegroom. I don't want to piss her off.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's so beautiful. That was the reason that I actually got started in comedy. I was a youth pastor for 15 years, and I got into this season that I see a lot of people do, where we get so aggravated at the entertainment industry for having a negative influence on culture. And one day I was turning and burning it, and I was preaching fire and brimstone to the young people. And God he said, "Listen, Elijah, shut up, man. Just be quiet. Those people that you are criticizing, those are my children. Yeah. And you're their brother, and you're just trying to shoo them away from me." And that's what merged me. I said, "Well, God, what can I do? How can I be an influence to the entertainment industry? Because I don't believe we have permission to complain about something if we're not at least helping to try to fix it." And he said, "Well, what do you know to do?" And I said, "Well, I know to pray." And so me and my little daughter, we just started praying for a celebrity a day. And then that eventually merged me into becoming a comedian, because that's the doorway for what I was doing, because people would laugh when I was doing these messages, and still it's weaved. And so the same kind of thing I do in comedy clubs is what I do in churches. But that's exactly what it has to do with what you're saying, is that why are we trying to shoo them off when God is trying to reach them through us and through the gifting that he's given us?
I mean, if you think about it, if you walked up to a girl and said, "Man, I've got a man for you," and she's wanting to get married, she's really got that desire, and you say, "But listen, you got to get rid of those earrings, and you got to make sure you don't cut your hair, and don't wear too much rouge."
Amen.
I mean, who would want to meet him?
No.
God loves you as you are, not as you should be, because none of us are as we should be. Thank you for that quote. But God loves you as you are. Jesus wants you as you are, not as you should be. One day we'll be as we should be, but until then, he wants us as we are.
Mm-hmm.
That's good stuff. That is so good. Hey, I want to know, because a lot of people don't know the background between for the song "Mary, Did You Know?" And I know you talk about this a lot, but there's a lot of people that don't know actually how that song came about. Would you mind talking a little bit about that?
Yeah. My pastor back in 1984 called me and asked me if I would write the Living Christmas Tree program for our church. And being young and not knowing that I couldn't, I said I would. And I proceeded to try to write Christmas songs. Well, I am a songwriter, but writing a Christmas song is hard because it's hard to get into that yearly Christmas thing where it comes back around, like White Christmas, which is kind of interesting. Many of our wonderful Christmas songs were written by a Jewish fella. What was his name? He wrote White Christmas. Look him up. Anyway, and so that's a side note, and come to find out I'm Jewish. I did 23andMe and I am 11% Jewish. I have never been more thrilled in my life. So then I just thought I was a Heinz 57. But I'm Jewish, and evidently my great-grandfather was scared to let everybody know it. But anyway, so I wrote monologues. What I ended up doing is writing monologues between songs that were already written, and like I do for my concerts, and so that's how the program was created. But one of the monologues I wrote was asking questions about, I wonder if Mary realized the power and the authority and the majesty she was cradling in her arms that first Christmas, and that those little baby fingers that were wrapped around hers were the same that had scooped out the oceans and formed the rivers, and those little infant lips had spoken worlds into existence. I was trying to sound like Gloria Gaither. And pastor would get up every night and repeat that before he gave the invitation, that whole little monologue. He memorized it, evidently. And so I knew something was special about that. So when that was all over, I just sat down and I thought, well, now, if I could ask Mary a question, if I could have a cup of coffee with Mary, what would I ask her? And most of the questions I had for her did not make the song because they didn't rhyme. But the others did. And it was like, what was it like changing God's diapers? What was it like having God nurse at your breast? What was it like teaching the word of God to talk? Mm-hmm. What was it like teaching God to walk? What was it like being his little brothers following him through school? Yes. Well, that's probably why, I say when I talk about this, that's probably why they didn't become believers till after the resurrection. It'd be hard to acknowledge your older brother wasn't just good. He's God. What was it like? What was it like following him through school? I can hear the teachers now. Well, when Jesus was in my class, he made straight A's. Sure. He wrote the book. And did you ever walk into his room and say, clean up this mess? Were you born in a barn? But the other question made the song. And it's so interesting. I wrote that in 1984 when I was 26. And then in 1991, Buddy Green put music to it. But now, a lot of people are having problems with it. It's so funny to read how many people get upset. It's usually like women that think I'm mansplaining. One of them said, Mark, you're Mary, did you know, is mansplaining to Mary. Well, if I'd been a woman, what would it have been? Woman-splaining? Right. And then I've never responded to a critic because, first of all, I know monuments have never been raised to critics, so you shouldn't listen to them or take them too serious. Mm-hmm. And also, let the children play. When people are just being mean, don't respond. And I've never really responded until this one day I had a weak moment. And I responded saying, and I don't even know who was talking about it. I never know these people. But I responded. I said, I wasn't asking you. And boy, did that.
Oh, yeah.
How dare you? Well, how dare you?
Yeah.
I wasn't talking to you. I was asking Mary. And maybe the angel did tell her all that stuff. Well, I didn't know it. Mm-hmm. She could say, yeah, the angel told me. These are my questions. Who are you to tell me I'm mansplaining? I don't even know what that means. Here.
That's the negative side, I guess, of today's technology, that anybody can be a critic and it'll be anonymous. That gives them this power to say whatever's on their mind.
Well, this lady most of them are not anonymous. And the thing is, there's not that many of them,
Yeah.
I get a million comments about how much it blesses them, and then one will say, and I go, and I always examine myself. Was I mansplaining? God, did I? I don't, because sometimes they're right.
Yeah.
They're not always wrong. It does wince at first, but then you need to take a deep breath and realize, number one, you ain't all that, and you could be wrong.
Right.
I tell Elias that all the time.
Yeah,
and he
amen.
just
It's one of the reasons that hecklers are in clubs are so aggravating because 99 people, 99% of the crowd can be just enjoying everything, but that one person that says thing, because in your heart you kind of think, yeah, that guy's the only one that gets me. Like he knows, he sees through the veil, and he realizes what he's saying may be mean, but it's a little bit true, probably.
Do you have responses for them?
Oh yeah, I've learned over the years. I merged into stand up when it was 2005, and so I've got loaded. The main thing in club scenes is people are either a few drinks too many in, everyone came there to have a good time. Everyone's invested some money into the thing, and so I try not to. I'm not a mean comic,
Right.
I try to be kind to everybody.
Let me tell you a story.
Okay, what do you got?
Oh my gosh, my most embarrassing moment on stage to this day. I was with the Gaithers. I just joined them, and it has to do with a heckler, so that's why I'm telling you this. And I was telling the story about pivot on your good foot. It was where I broke 11 bones in a car wreck, and so I've always, up until I joined the Gaithers, I had always performed in churches. And that's back in the day when churches had every light on. It wasn't black as it is now with smoke machines.
Right.
For real churches, with lights on, and everybody's in a pew, and you can see them from the back to the front. You can see everybody. That's what I was used to, which was very hard for me to get used to with the Gaithers performing to a black wall. You're lit up, but the audience doesn't know. You can't see them. You can see maybe the first or second row at a Gaither concert. After that, it's pitch black because it's a show, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, so I've learned, I'm listening to the audience, and that's how I'm responding. I can hear them. I can't see them. And someone says, "Your face is going to stick like that." And I'd never ate their concert. They don't throw tomatoes. They might throw a bran muffin or two. These are old people. And so, but I'm thinking, I am not being heckled, right? And then I just keep talking, and then I hear, "Your face is gonna stick like that," and because I make a lot of faces, and I just keep going, and then the audience starts laughing around this person, so I know I've got my place because he's taking the attention away from this story. So finally, I remembered a line I used in public high school assemblies that I heard from some comedian because I'd never been heckled, and I just grabbed it out of my memory. And I thought, oh my. And so I said, "That's what happens to you when your mother takes drugs while she's pregnant."
Oh no.
Let me at a Gaither concert. Okay, now listen, that audience sucked air. The air pressure changed in the room. I had 3 fillings. I finished, and that lonely drop of sweat that runs down your back when you're bombing lands in your underwear. That.
Yeah.
Well, I finished the monologue because I'm a professional, and then I go sit down next to Michael English, who is the color of a cloud, white, blood drained from his face. And I said, "What happened?" And he said, "He's in a wheelchair."
Oh no.
The audience thought I could see him.
Oh.
When your mother takes drugs, was your friend? Oh, my Lord. Well, let me tell you what I learned from that experience. Number one, don't talk to anybody you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see them, put the spotlight on them, and then address them.
Writing these down.
Don't ever use that line again. Especially at a Gaither concert. And my heart was broken because I really am a tender-hearted person in reality, and I couldn't wait to find that guy and apologize. And it took me about 5 years before I could get over it playing in that same room, because Gaither goes back to that same venue in Gatlinburg every year. And I would clam up. I'd walk and I couldn't perform. And finally, you got to get over that, you know, and I did immediately because he said to. But it just, in there, I'd have this panic attack that I hurt someone like that, because I'm not that. Dude, I'm a nice comedian.
Right.
And I'm not, and I'm a storyteller. You know, I don't, you know, if you're in that, and I've been, you know, I was named a comedian by Word Records, and I accepted it, and I'm, you know, that's fine. It doesn't really hurt. But when you say a comedian, they expect to laugh. And I like it when they just, you know, now when people know I'm coming, they're all expecting to laugh. But you know the days I miss, 1980 to 1988, and I don't miss them that bad because I wouldn't want to go back and do this again, but where I do about 200 concerts a year. My PA system was in my trunk. My polyester suits were on a bar from one side of my car to the next. My 8 tracks and albums were lined up under the suits that I would sell that night. My pad was by me as I drove down the road, because I might think of something funny to say and I want to write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me and the Lord. And nobody knew they were going to laugh. All they knew was coming was a singer from Jerry Falwell's school, because that's how they would get me in there.
Yeah.
And once I got there, I'd be on a Sunday morning, right? And I would start singing In This Very Room, which is a beautiful song, but it is boring, especially when someone like me sings it, because I'm just not that exciting of a singer. I'm a baritone. How exciting can it be? And I would sing, in this very room, there's quite enough love for one like me. You know, and everybody's sitting there, and I could see it on their faces because I could see them. And I could see them start thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to have to sit through 15 minutes of this. And then right after the song, I would start telling my stories. And they would be in the floor laughing because they weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
It's really easier than, okay, he's coming here. Okay, let's get ready.
Right.
You know, then you got to really knock it out of the park. You know?
Right.
What would you rather be known as, like when this is all said and done, your career is done, you're not out in the public anymore? Would you rather be known as a singer, a comedian, or a songwriter?
Well, it doesn't matter what I would like to be known as. I will be known as the guy who wrote Mary Did You Know? Because comedy has a short shelf life. Even great comedy eventually turns to corn.
Yeah.
And listen to Bob Hope. In his day, it was hysterical.
Right.
But now it's, you know, kind of corny.
Yeah.
And he was probably the best of his era.
Right.
And singing, I've never been, you know, I think I'm a good communicator, but I'm not a great singer.
I love your singing, and I'm not just saying that because you're on here. When I listen to the Gaither vocal videos, and I listen to them a lot throughout the day, I'll just let them play. I love your voice. I think you have one of the most unique voices to me, and you think it's normal probably to you because it's your voice. But I can hear your voice out of everyone in the Gaither vocal band, and it just, to me, you're the voice that pulls them all together. That's
gosh, I love you already. Well, thank you very much. And my mother, if she were living, would agree with you. But but anyway, so I know that, you know, I'll tell you, when I was 11, this preacher came to our church, the Greenwood Village Baptist Church in Houston, Texas. And he preached on Solomon, the wisdom of Solomon. And then he opened the altar. If you want to come to the altar and pray for wisdom, come on down here. So I thought, well, I could use some of that. So I went down to the altar and asked the Lord, I can remember this, asked the Lord for wisdom. And I was 11. And before I got up from that altar, I said, and I'd like an interesting life. And I'd like to do something that will outlive me. I don't even know why, except that I knew even then I'd never get married. I've never had a desire to. That scares me. That's always scared me. Probably because my dad was a lawyer and handled a lot of divorces. You know, and that just scared me. So but I said, Lord, I'd like to do something that will outlive me, because I knew there'd be no kids coming. And about 30 years later, I'm at the Walmart buying CDs for Christmas, and I pick up Natalie Cole's CD, and Mary Did You Know is on it. And I didn't know she'd recorded it. I picked
Wow.
up Donny Osmond's CD, and Mary Did You Know was on it. And I didn't know he'd recorded it. And and the Lord reminded me of that prayer. And I really think Mary Did You Know is going to outlive me.
Yeah. Wow. And that, I mean, not many people can say that.
If I could pick one thing to outlive me that I have done, that would be what I picked too.
Yeah.
Because it's everything I believe about Jesus. This song really isn't about Mary. The song is about her son.
Right.
You know?
What a beautiful song too. And you went from writing that song, and it went a number of years. In the meantime, Bill Gaither comes into your life. Tell us how that came about.
Okay. 1988, I was singing at Estes Park. I'd gotten on a Monday morning at the Estes Park thing. It was a big deal. I mean, I used to go to this thing. It was the biggest thing in Christian music at that time for many, many years. About 20 years, it was huge. Every major artist, from Petra to Sandy Patty to Michael W. Smith, Amy Grant, they all went, and they made a habit of it. And then they would teach courses during the day on songwriting and stuff. And I wanted to be a songwriter in the early 80s when I was learning my craft of that. And I learned from Dottie Rambo and all these people at these songwriting conferences.
Wow.
During the week. And then I would go to the concerts where all the big stars were singing, and I would watch them. And I knew I couldn't out-sing any of them, but I felt I could out-talk all of them.
Yeah.
Back then, that was my gift, and you need to dance with who brung you. And so when I did finally get on that morning, Sandy Patty introduced me, and I said, "Thank you, Amy, for that wonderful introduction."
Oh.
I said, "Your first album, My Father's Eyes, is still my favorite." They were Amy and Sandy were the two biggest things in our industry at that time, and I knew that would work if I called her Amy, called Sandy Amy, and
Yeah.
in on the joke. She died laughing, which helped. And so I had them immediately because I had 10 minutes. And then I said, "Y'all ready to rock and roll?" And they went, "Yeah." I said, "Tough, I don't do that." And little songs. And then I told a story about going to Pittsburgh and not getting paid. Because I knew, okay, if you can picture this, in this building, all the people up front to the stage are the former wannabes, all the stars in our industry, the former wannabes. And then everybody in the cheap seats where I sat were the wannabes, right? The ones who wanted to be in it. And I knew both groups had probably gone somewhere in their career and not gotten paid. So I knew this story would work. And then I sang another song, and I walked off the stage because I had to be at a camp. I was booked. They let me off on Monday night so I could do this. I had to fly to Georgia to do the camp for the rest of the week. And from that, I got the Gaither vocal band and a solo gig, my solo career with Word Records.
Wow.
And so that's how that happened. And then from 88, 13 years later, the next 13 years I was with the vocal band and doing a solo career. So I was busy.
Wow. Yeah, because you would go. How often did you guys tour? When you went out on the Gaither tours, how many cities would you do in a time frame?
Probably 3 or 4 in a weekend.
Okay.
We'd always fly home on Sundays, and we'd be home Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, maybe fly out Wednesday or Thursday, but Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night, and rarely a Sunday, because Bill didn't do many churches.
Yeah.
He did theaters and arenas and such.
Yeah. I got to tell you this because as someone, we might have a kind of a mutual friend here. The church that I started going to as a little kid that my mama took me to, praise God, she took me. But it was in an old abandoned shoe store. They were just starting out. It was called Archie House. And the guy that started it was Johnny Minnick. And
I love him.
My mom used to sing with him in church a lot. My mom's passed away now, but
Oh.
I became good friends with his nephew, who sounds. I don't know if you've ever heard his nephew's name, Vince Minnick. Sounds identical to him. Such a talented family, in fact.
Yeah.
And so he gave the church off to his brothers, Bobby and Tony Minnick, and of course Johnny went full time into the music with the Goodmans, of course, as you know.
Was
And so
sound.
at that church it felt like we were at a Gaither vocal meeting every Sunday. We loved it. And so that's probably what got me listening to all of this.
Johnny still does, thank God. He has that, I call it that big fat Goodman sound.
Yes.
It's a wall of sound. Whoa, I can't even do it, but I try to do it. When I'm singing with people, it's great on harmony, Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Oh my God, I got chills thinking about it.
Yes, I love listening to him sing. And there's a song he sings. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. Is the Lighthouse. I love that song.
There's a lighthouse. It's that kind of a sound.
Yes.
On the hillside. But did you ever hear Howard Goodman? It's the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. Loved that. I loved hearing them together, actually.
Well, he blended like he was part of the family. If you ever heard Rusty, Rusty and Johnny sounded a lot alike.
I know that you've mentioned J.D. Sumner in the past, and I love J.D. Sumner. I'm a huge Elvis fan, and we talked a little bit about some of the people I talked to earlier today, and I heard J.D. in person, and he, of course, they say he's got the deepest register a bass sound on record ever, and to hear the building shake, man.
Records at one time.
He was what? Say that.
He was in the Guinness Book of World Records at one time as the lowest sound ever made by a human.
Yes, and I just love him. I loved hearing your stories about JD. How you guys related. He was a funny man. I met him a couple of times, and he just he had that. It was more of a drier sense of humor, but he had the punchline every time.
He laugh. I mean, I would. Okay, I tell you how it started. I was at a Gaither taping. You know, the kind that are always in the round, kind of like in that shoe thing, horseshoe kind of a deal. Anyway, I was sitting on one side of the room, and JD was sitting on the other side of the room with George Yance. Yes. And JD lean up and whisper something in George's ear, and I saw George laugh so hard I thought he was going to cough up a lung. And right then I decided I will know JD Sumner, and I passed away. So, and she was like a guard dog. I mean, she wouldn't let anybody through. But now that she's dead, I thought maybe I could get through. So we became, and we went to breakfast, and I'd get him laughing sometimes so hard I could have killed him, because he loved to laugh, and he'd get to laughing where his mouth is open and he's not breathing or moving or nothing. It's weird. But he had the best stories,
Yeah.
I can't remember them, but George, if you ever really want to hear a bunch of good Elvis stories, JD stories, they're all JD stories, but they include Elvis. There's a guy named George Hare who used to always go up there with me too. He was friends of JD, and he could remember all the stories. And oh my goodness, yeah, I miss him. But you know what is interesting? When they called me and said JD had passed, hey buddy, when they called me and said JD Sumner had died, I remember, being sad a little bit, but also thinking, you know what, I said everything I had to say to him.
Yeah.
Didn't feel like we left one stone unturned. We discovered grace together. I had read The Grace Awakening by Chuck Swindoll.
Yes.
I was at the time, and I would go up to his apartment and retell him everything I was learning. Because when I first met JD, he said to me, if I get to heaven, it'll be by the skin of my teeth. And ain't nobody getting in by the skin of their teeth. And I started explaining grace to him from the book I was reading, and he got it. I mean, he got it big time. And I got it big time from Chuck Swindoll. I thank God for Chuck Swindoll to this day, because that book, it just started my journey into believing that God is crazy about me. Mm-hmm. And he'd rather die than live without me. And he also likes me. He's not watching everything I do so he can stop me. He's watching everything I do because he loves me so much he can't take his eyes off of me. Like any healthy father when they see a child coming.
Yes.
And he's that same way with you two and everybody listening to this podcast. God's heart skips a beat when you come into the room.
Amen. Isn't that's something?
Book really taught me, and plus many other books like The Life of the Beloved by Henry Nouwen and others like that. Anything by Brennan Manning, anything. Abba's Child, Ragamuffin Gospel, all great books. If you're still wondering if God likes you, there are a lot of people I love I don't like. It ain't no big deal to be loved. It's a big deal to be liked.
Yeah.
I go through Christmas, Thanksgiving too. Every family has a squirrel in the family tree that you'll cry. You will cry when they die, but you don't want to go on vacation with them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And if nobody popped into your head, you're it. Every family tree got a nut in the treehouse, right? But God's crazy about you. He likes you, even if you're insane. He likes you. He likes you, and he loves you. Of course, it's so important to know God loves you. But I think it's really important to know He likes you too. And I learned that really early on from Mrs. Holland, my third grade teacher, who told me God must really like you because He gave you so much energy. And I had never heard that before. Of course, I was only in the third grade, hadn't heard much.
Yeah.
Held on to it. And then I relearned it later in life through those books.
Hey, I was going to ask you about your school experience. Were you considered to be a class clown type student?
Oh, yes. I had a whole page of just my different faces that I had made that year when a camera was near.
Yes.
And they called me the man of 1,000 faces. In my yearbook, I got a whole page. And I think I was I think I was the main class clown. Of course, it was a Christian school.
Okay.
There weren't that many people in the school. Our graduating class had 10. I was in the top 10% of my class, which is not.
Well, that was going to be my next question was, did you ever go to summer school? But if you went to a private Christian school, probably not. Because summer school is where class clowns kind of gathered, and it was like you realize you're in a whole nother league then. You're like, oh, I'm among all these.
Were you the class clown?
Yes, 10th and 11th grade and 12th grade. Yep, I was.
We were actually in class together, so
It's a long time.
Yes, many years. I wanted to ask you a couple of things too, as far as your time with the Gaither Vocal Band. What experiences that you went through on tour and everything? I know you guys had to become so close, and how many members? I know there was a lot of members of the Gaither Vocal Band, but when you're on tour with that, and like Bill Gaither, all of you guys still friends and close today? And how often do you talk to these guys?
Pretty much. Well, Michael English, none of us talk every day, except I talk to Bill probably more than any of them, because he'll call. Bill call, and I call him. And then who else was in there? I don't. Oh gosh, Guy Penrod. I mean, I can call any of them, and we pick up where we left off. It's that kind of friendship. We don't have to talk every. Now some have. Well, just recently, Jonathan Pierce died.
Oh, I did not know that. I did not know that.
He had a heart.
Oh my gosh!
And dropped dead at 52. Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
I think he was the first. And then just recently, Gary McSpadden passed away. So those are the first two that have died since of the clientele that has been in the vocal band. When I first joined it, it was me, Bill, Michael English, and Jim Murray, who used to be in the Imperials. And then
Yes.
Jim left, and Terry Franklin came, and it was me, Michael, Bill, and Terry, and that was my favorite group of all time as far as the
Yeah.
sound.
Mm-hmm.
The sound, it blended like, oh my gosh, it was like sometimes I'd literally have to stop singing to remember which part was mine.
Yeah.
I couldn't. I mean, we just blended so well.
Mm-hmm.
And then Guy Penrod came along, and he took it in a whole different, way. Every change is good and different,
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Yeah. What's next for you in your career? I know. Are you still touring? As of course, I know we got the quarantine now, but what are your plans for the
my
future?
first thing a week from Friday, which is interesting. It's in Pigeon Forge. They were supposed to have 10,000, and they're going to have 1,200 now because they to space everybody out right.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting. I'm coming out in a hazmat suit, and but as far as I don't really, I've never had any goals. I hate to admit that. I just kind of whatever door opened, I walked through it. Honest to goodness. Now I've been driven. You don't do 200 concerts a year if you're not driven.
Yeah.
But I never had any goals. I never thought I'd get this far.
Any more recordings in the work, or as far as comedy or even albums?
No, I think I'm pretty much done with that. I thought about, I've been saying I'm retiring, but I probably never will. But I don't want to record anymore. I've recorded
Yeah.
enough. I've already said too much. I've already told way more than I know.
Which is
Okay.
funny because I see you're more active on these social media platforms and all this than ever in your life. So you're actually recording things and documenting things more than ever. So daily your voice is out there.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that. But to me, it's more like, okay, let's go in here and I just do it, and I don't plan it. I just go in there and do it, and then when it's over, I think of it again. But I guess those are out there forever, you know.
Yeah.
So much lately, which number one, I enjoy it. Number two, I have been also hunkering down, and I'm bored. And I started thinking about all those sweet people that follow me. Most of them are 65 and older, according to Facebook. And most of them are single women, probably widows or you never married, whatever. Uh, 2/3 of women, 1/3 of men. Wait, that's right. A quarter of men. I don't know what it is. It's always more women. And I started thinking, I need to check in on them. So I just called them. I'm checking in on you. And oh my gosh, they love it. Because some of them are sitting here alone.
Yeah.
So I just get on there and I go live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter all at the same time through an app called Restream.io, which is really cool. And so, and the comments have been so encouraging because, oh, Mark, you're the only thing that got me through this pandemic, that type of thing. Because we just sing old hymns and we sing them a cappella. And because I can't play the piano. And so I just sing and then talk a little bit, and tell them I'm thinking about them. And it means the world to people. I don't understand it myself. I wouldn't care to hear me every day, but thank God they do.
Hey, well, listen, someone's got to mansplain things, and
That's
you
right. Touche. I love that.
Now we have what we call our dumb wheel. We spin a wheel, and it has a dumb question. And
All right.
so I've already spun the wheel, which we're going to add in later. I'll
Yeah.
do a little clip of that. But
All right.
here's the question for you, and we kind of we tailored these to you. Okay, yours
Okay.
is if you were trapped on a life raft with the members of the Gaither vocal band, and you can pick whichever era. You just say your favorite era that you mentioned earlier, and there's only room enough for 3 of you. Who are you gonna push off the raft?
Oh, it'd have to be Bill. Because Michael, Harry, and I can blend so well. And Bill is already 84. It's like, good night, man. How long are you going to hang around?
Yeah.
is empty and ready for you. You know, I keep telling my dad he's still here because his mansion's not ready, and he needs to repent. Dad, terrible. But no, I don't know. I'd probably jump off myself. I'd die to self and just sacrifice. You know,
Yeah.
Believe that.
You know, speaking of your dad, I did see one of the videos of you and your family all sitting around. I love that. I love that, by the way. And the story he told about spanking the bed.
It's great.
Can you tell a little bit about that? I love
Well,
that story.
finally, he realized my mama was half crazy. And sometimes she, you know, I'd get a spanking that I probably didn't really need. And so this one time he realized that, you know, I really didn't do it, but he took me upstairs and he said, Mark, you just holler, I'm gonna spank the bed. And he loves telling that story. And I loved that day. But you know, I used to go upstairs and put on 17 pairs of underwear before every whipping. Pull my jeans up over that. Dad would come up to whip his deformed son. But yeah, I got a lot of spankings. But you know what? I'm not upset about it. I mean, some kids might have been, but I always thought, Lord, if you knew what I'd done, you didn't find out. So,
What are your favorite couple of songs that maybe not necessarily that you sing, as far as gospel music is concerned? I've always wondered that coming from you. What are your favorite songs?
well, you know, I'm a lyricist. I love lyrics, and I can just quote them and be just as thrilled as if you sing them.
Yeah.
My favorite lyric, really, is the second verse to the love of God. Do you know that?
I don't remember that.
Could we with ink the ocean fill, and were the skies of parchment made, where every man, where every stalk, I'm sorry, let me do it again. Could we with ink the ocean fill, and were the skies of parchment made, where every stalk on earth a quill, and every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God above would drain the ocean dry, nor could the scroll contain the whole, though stretched from sky to sky. And what I love about that is it was found on an insane asylum wall.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that person
What
was,
a story.
I mean, every lyricist I know adores that lyric. Gloria Gaither, all of them, because it says it all. And J.D. Sumner said to me one time, he said, I don't get that verse. And I said, well, it's like this. Okay. Where every stalk on earth, let's see, could we with ink, okay, if we emptied the oceans and filled them up with ink, and then every blade of grass became a big pen, and then the sky was one big pad of paper, and every human being on earth became a Gloria Gaither, and they all started writing on the sky about the love of God. Before they could finish, the ocean would be dry. And he said, oh, I get it now.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Yes.
cookies on the bottom shelf. But that song, you'll just stop and think about it. Oh, gosh. And then, of course, songs, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I'll just be walking around the house and there's songs that just come out of me. Not that I'm writing on the spot, but I'm talking about songs that, like one of them that I love that Gloria and Bill wrote was, I believe, help thou my unbelief. I walk into the unknown, trusting like a child, 'cause I believe. Lord, help my unbelief. I walk into the unknown, trusting all the while. And it says, I long so much to feel the warmth. And I always say that Vestal seemed to know. But should I never feel a thing, I claim him even so. Because a lot of people think, you know, you got to jump pews to know you're saved or whatever. You know, you can feel nothing and choose to believe, and you're saved.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Love those lyrics.
I do
I don't
too.
know that I've never heard that. I don't that I remember anyway. If I have, I didn't think that much, put that much thought into it like I did hearing you just say it instead of hearing it,
Yeah.
and with all the song, so forth. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
So much to feel the warmth that others seem to know. But should I never feel a thing, I claim him. Even so.
Man.
Oh my
Mm.
God.
Ah, that gave me chills when you
Me
just
too.
did that. I love it. I love it. I can't thank you enough for joining us today, man.
Y'all, until I realize you're both Christians, because I think, gosh, if these are secular comedians and they're thinking I'm going to be funny, they're in for a bad time.
Isn't that the beauty though of comedy? The beauty of comedy is this universal brotherhood. That's what I find, is that you said something at the beginning of the interview where a lot of the people and the comics that are in clubs probably couldn't merge into going into a Christian environment and make them laugh. I find that both directions, and both kind of like, well, you're not really playing to this crowd, you're not really playing to that crowd. But the closer you get, it's that universal language of humor and funny, and it heals the soul, and it just brings healing to people. And that's what I appreciate about you, because where you stood out for me is my dad was a pastor in Little Rock, Arkansas. We called it Lotta Rock, Arkansas back in the day because it was the 80s and everyone was a glam rock, we're calling this Lotta Rock kind of thing. And I was always a musician, and I was class clown, that kind of thing. And my dad had more of an inner city type church, but it's impossible to be a pastor of a church without being exposed to Southern gospel in the South. It's just impossible.
Yeah.
And so where I started seeing releases and exposure on TBN, on Christian television of these, and then I'd see you on there and you were saying funny things. I was like, oh, well, there's my connection right there. I can relate with this right here. And I'm a huge fan of Southern gospel, but I'm a bigger fan of the universal language of love and of laughter, and comedy. And so that's just it. This has been such a blessing for me to just hear you and hear you. I could learn. You've forgotten more things than I'll ever know. So I really appreciate your voice.
Well, you guys have made me feel so good. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, you've been such a blessing to so many people, more so than you probably will ever realize. So on behalf of those people and ourselves, we thank you. And I always tell people, I've always wanted to say this to you, your ADHD has been a blessing to all of this world.
Yeah.
And you guys are great. If you ever come to Houston, look me up.
We will do that. We will do that for sure.
Probably will do some gigs here eventually. So make sure you let me know and I'll come hear you.
Okay, sounds good. I'm in Houston. Well, I postponed a Houston date, but I'll reach out to you.
info@marklowry.com.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. God bless you, my friend.
It's been fun, guys. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.